Hi, this is William from the Headphone Experience. I'm here tonight with my full review of the Topping E30 Dac. This was loaned to me by Apos Audio, and it currently sells for $129.99. But I was looking at their website, and apparently there will be a price increase on this on January 1st, and apparently there's a problem with availability, and the price is scheduled to go up to $149.99. So I wanted to get this video out in time where if you do want one of these, you can hopefully catch the lower price and before it goes up. Anyway, this unit, it has an OLED screen on the front, or the faceplate. It uses a DAC chip that is a AK4493 EQ. It has three inputs, and you can see those on the back here. You have a USB input, a coax input, and a optical input. And it has one set of RCA outs, your analog output. I did want to mention that it does have a preamp function, and you can control, when set to preamp, you can control the volume with the remote, which I will show you in a few minutes. The measurements on this provided by Topping are pretty impressive. They're showing a total harmonic distortion of 0.0003%. They're showing crosstalk with more than 130 decibels of separation between the two channels, a signal to noise ratio of 121 decibels, and a dynamic range of 119 decibels. I did also want to mention that this is both PCM and DSD compatible. Also, this unit has 6 different digital roll-off filters, which you can adjust from. You can scroll through the 6 filters from your remote control. And I did want to show you that. This unit does come with a remote control. Some of the buttons on this are not functional with this DAC. I believe that Topping uses some of the functions on the remote aren't functional used with this DAC because Topping does use the same remote with several of their products. But you can turn it on and off. You can scroll through your 3 inputs. I believe you can switch it to the preamp mode with this and then adjust your volume up and down, and I believe it has 99 volume steps. And you can also scroll through your 6 different digital filters with this. This unit also comes with a USB cable, and it does come with a power supply cable, and because this unit uses 5 volts DC, it doesn't use a transformer. What it does is it just has a USB plug on the end, and you can plug this into a USB port or a USB charger. Seems to work fine. I am personally using the USB ports or power supplies on a Monster Power Supply power conditioner, and it seems to be running really quiet. I'm not hearing any background noise at all, and I'm kind of surprised by that, but noise doesn't seem to be an issue. It does have a plug on the back or on the cable that does plug into your 5 volt DC input on the back. You can, I guess, upgrade to a better power supply, but doesn't seem like it really needs it. The USB out on my Monster Power Supply seems to be very quiet and no noise issues at all. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about the equipment I used in testing this and reviewing it. And basically, I used my CD player, digital output of my CD player as my source. I'm using a Cambridge Audio 540C, and obviously just as a transport, run into the optical output on this. And then I'm running the analog outputs of the DAC to a Audio GD Master 9 headphone amp, which is my reference amp. As far as headphones that I use to review this, I use the LSA HP2 and the Kennerton Woden. And as far as music, I use my normal variety of some rock, pop, a little bit of electronic, a lot of acoustical music, especially with female vocals. I find that the best, for me anyway, is the best type of music to evaluate headphones and equipment, and a little bit of orchestral music. I did directly compare this to another DAC, and that would be the big difference between this review and my first impressions. In the first impressions, I'd only listened to this for a couple hours, and it's about 2 months later, and I do apologize for that. I had to take about 5 weeks off to resolve some personal issues, and I'm only been back for about a week now. So anyway, I've had this about 2 months, and I have had time to do some substantial listening, and I did get a chance to compare this to my benchmark DAC 1, which may seem like a little bit of an unfair comparison because that was originally a $1,000 DAC. It's not available anymore. Now you can get either the DAC 2 or the DAC 3 from Benchmark, which have been upgraded. But the fact is that about 7.5, almost 8 years ago when I bought that DAC, that was a $1,000 DAC. And I've been using it as my reference. And that DAC was actually given an A rating by Stereophile magazine several years in a row. And Benchmark is considered to be pretty much top of the line. So anyway, I realize it's an older DAC, and it is, I think the design is about 12 years old. So it is a little outdated, but a very good DAC to start with. So anyway, I decided to try and compare it directly to the Benchmark to see if this thing held its own against it. And what happened is 2 months ago when I got this DAC, I hooked it up to my Audio GD Master 9 amp, and that amp has 5 inputs. Well, I had my Benchmark DAC hooked up to that, to one of the other outputs, and a week ago when I got a chance to get back into my reviewing, I decided to compare the two, and I honestly forgot which one was hooked to which input. Because I do a lot of switching around. Every time I get new equipment in, I'm plugging, unplugging equipment, hooking up different amps, different DACs, and all that. And I honestly forgot which input. I knew one was on input 1, I knew one was on input 2, but I honestly forgot which was which. And I thought, really, this is a perfect opportunity to really give an unbiased opinion because I didn't know which one was which. So I spent probably a couple of hours switching back and forth between the two inputs. Once again, not remembering which one was which, so it became sort of a blind test to me. And I switched back and forth, and I listened to several different types of music, and I remember listening to some Sarah McLachlan, some Tori Amos, Dire Straits, a few different things, and all well done recordings. And I reached the point that I really couldn't decide which DAC I liked better. Okay, when I was listening with the LSA HP2, which is a very revealing headphone, but because it's a closed back, it doesn't have a huge sound stage. It's kind of an average size sound stage. I really wasn't hearing as much difference with that, but when I switched over to the Kennerton Woden, and we're talking a planar magnetic, about a $2,500 headphone if you're not familiar with Kennerton Woden, and has exceptional detail, and it also has a huge soundstage, probably the largest soundstage definitely of any headphone I have right now, and one of the largest sound stages of any headphone I've ever heard. Well, with the Woden, I could hear a significant difference between the two DACs. There was no doubt, you know, that they did have a different sound, but I still didn't know which one I was listening to because I hadn't checked the inputs. So what it basically comes down to is, I can tell you right now, this little $129, $130 DAC, without a doubt, holds its own against my $1,000 reference DAC, because I really, when I was switching back and forth, couldn't decide which I like better. I think it would kind of depend on what type of music I was listening to, maybe which headphone I was listening to in the sound signature, and you know, some different factors, just kind of my mood, the music, all that. But anyway, what I basically came down to is that after switching back and forth for a couple hours, I did check and see which DAC I was listening to, which was hooked on which input, and I was actually kind of surprised. It came back backwards of what I thought it was going to be. So what it turned out is the benchmark DAC 1 had a slightly warmer, a little bit more of a liquid, smoother, I would say less digital, a little bit more analog sound to it. More of a musical sort of a, what's the word, musicality. I'm kind of, I don't really like that word because it gets thrown around a lot now, and not sure what it's really saying, but like I said, just a slight, the benchmark has a slightly warmer, little bit, you know, just a smoother, more liquid sound. The E30, actually, even though it's slightly drier and probably a little more analytical sounding than the benchmark, it actually has exceptional detail, every bit as good as the benchmark. And the one thing that really surprised me is the E30 actually has a wider and a more three-dimensional soundstage, in my opinion, than the benchmark that I've been using as my reference DAC. I didn't really notice it much on the LSA HP2 because that headphone has a smaller soundstage. But on the Kennerton Woden with the huge soundstage, I noticed that especially female vocals, I tried this on both Sarah McLachlan and Tori Amos, and I think Jewel also, where all three, the voices with the benchmark seem to be more centered in the middle, and with the EP or the E30, the voices actually wrapped around a little bit further, and I felt like I was hearing more layering and more depth to the sound stage. So that right there made it really hard for me to decide. I mean, I'd like the little bit warmer, smoother sound of the benchmark, but that wider and more layered, more three-dimensional sound stage of the E30 is, you know, I really like that. And I actually, since then, I've had a hard time choosing which one I wanted to listen to. So the fact that this $130 DAC can compare and hold its own against $1,000 reference DAC that I've used since I started reviewing for, what, 2.5 years now? I mean, that just blows me away. So, so what do I have to say about this? Do I recommend it? Absolutely. It is, in my opinion, outstanding for the price. And this little $130 DAC, in my opinion, is good enough to use with a $1,600 headphone amp and a $2,500 headphone. I heard no flaws with it. I did want to mention, I intended to mention this a little earlier, but I kind of forgot about it, is this unit does have 6 adjustable filters on it, and you can scroll through those. These are filters that adjust the roll-off, the digital roll-off up according to the graphs that Topping has on their website, they start the graphs at 16,000 hertz. And basically there is no change between the 6 filters until you get above 20,000 hertz. Okay, then you have a choice of either a quick roll off or a slow roll off, and basically 6 different filters. And to be honest, I tried these and I personally cannot hear the difference. Okay, I watched a few other videos to see what other people were saying about it, and most of the reviews I saw of this DAC, there was no mention of those filters, and they didn't really talk about it, didn't give their opinion of whether they were hearing a difference or not. I normally don't watch other people's reviews because I don't want it to influence or bias my review, but I was curious. You know, I personally was not hearing a difference. Well, if I look at the chart provided by Topping, these adjustments are making changes above 20,000 hertz. Well, I'm 56 years old. I know I cannot hear above 20,000 hertz. In fact, I doubt I can hear above 15,000 hertz. And most people my age can't, and in fact, from what I've read, very few people over 15 years old are hearing anywhere near 20,000 hertz. There are people out there that believe that what would be sounds in the ultrasonic range higher than 20,000 hertz and higher than the human hearing range can actually change the way you perceive the sound even though you're not hearing it. I'm not sure I buy into that. So anyway, I watched one review where the reviewer thought that these adjustable filters were the most important feature of this DAC. I watched another review where the reviewer came right out and said that he didn't hear a difference, and I'm sorry, I had a $2,500 headphone on using a very nice amp, and I switched it back and forth, and apparently the differences are in a frequency range that's too high for me to hear because I just didn't hear a difference. I did also want to mention that I believe that there are differences in DACs. I can hear differences in DACs. Some people don't think there is. Some people feel that, excuse me, some people feel that all DACs are now the same. And I do agree with that somewhat. I believe that Delta Sigma DACs have reached the point that they're all beyond the threshold of human hearing now, and the DAC chip isn't going to make a lot of difference. But I do still believe that there is a lot of difference in, you know, the different stages, especially the analog output stage. And there can be a significant difference in the sound of one DAC to another. And apparently, whatever they did with this DAC, they got it right, because, like I said, I'm very impressed with this, and for the price, I think it's outstanding, and I'm going to recommend it. And I'm probably about a week, I'm going to do my best of 2020 video, which I will talk about what I think are the best bargains, and this is probably going to be on that as the best budget DAC, or, you know, sort of an entry-level DAC, which, like I said, the sound-wise, this may have an entry-level price, but I think this is definitely up in a mid-fi range performance. So yes, I will be recommending it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up now. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you are all welcome to join us over at the Headphone Experience. We are now up over 9,500 members. And once again, thank you for watching my video.